Hey, friend. I want to talk about the power of choice. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. And this is Viktor Frankl, who was in Auschwitz. The most important thing I've learned in my quest for self realization in the past 14 years is that we can choose how we respond in any situation or circumstance. I'm Sherold Barr, a master coach and business coach. When I came off the ventilator in the ICU of Sharp Memorial Hospital in San Diego after the near fatal car wreck I was in 4+ years ago, I heard a voice on my left side, and this was after my 5th surgery. I was between worlds, and this voice said, "You get to choose how you go through this experience. What will you choose?" And my mind, I immediately thought, I'll choose the high road. And to me, the high road means love and gratitude. That's just what came into my mind next. This was the most powerful experience I've ever had. It was a near-death experience. I didn't know it at the time, but I knew something profound had happened to me. And this voice was not my voice. I was thrilled about this, actually, after I woke up. The choice I made when I was unconscious and between worlds was to use love and gratitude to help me heal. I didn't want to be a victim. After that voice that I heard when I was unconscious and between worlds was that I would take the high road. And to me, that meant love and gratitude. I would use those two things to help me heal. I just want to say that that's how I ended up going through all of those surgeries and even more, and learning to walk twice, almost dying in this whole process. This was a pretty serious accident. I had a remarkable healing experience, and it's a great example of how we forget that we have that power. What Viktor Frankl is fundamentally saying is that any man and any woman under any circumstances can decide what's going to become of him or her mentally and spiritually. That's really profound, that you have the power to find meaning in this experience and in this suffering. And this is regardless of your health, your wealth, your circumstances, and no matter how miserable or dire they are. We know that life includes suffering. I think somehow we get on this planet and we think, oh, life's going to be happy and it's going to be good. But just like light has to have dark, we have to have suffering. And in that suffering becomes a potential transformation or not. It's a matter of becoming conscious and awakening, if you can, from that difficult circumstance. There's always meaning in suffering. Even in the most difficult experiences, suffering is a way to add deeper meaning to your life. I'm grateful that I found meaning in my suffering after that near-fatal car wreck. And I believed that I would make a comeback regardless of what my physical limitations were. After I came out of ICU and off the ventilator after my last surgery, and I was ready to be transferred down to the surgical floor to recover, I asked the ICU manager if she would give me a handful of patient satisfaction forms. Before I left the ICU, I wrote down the names of the ICU nurses, many of them that had taken care of me over a period of days when I was off this ventilator. One of the nurses had to repeatedly catheterize me and put a catheter in my bladder, and my bladder muscles were asleep the whole time I was in the hospital. 6 weeks. One of the nurses, she had to repeatedly do this. And so on my form, this was just an example of what I did. I wrote, Caroline was kind and compassionate, and she was the queen of catheters. The ICU manager told me that many people who are in that unit, those nurses don't get a lot of praise. And that saddened me because I know, having worked in healthcare for like 25 years, that nurses are the unsung heroes. I just made it a pact to be grateful. And that's what I did. As I began to see the potency of love and gratitude in my healing, I knew I had to bring it back, that this was a way I could bring it back and help others. Because I've been studying and teaching mindset now for at least a decade. I knew how to manage my mind. I knew how to stay off focusing on repeating stories or scaring myself. Anything I didn't like the whiteboard in front of my bed, was kind of irritating at one point. And then I realized, oh, that's irritating. I'm going to get more of irritating, because what we think about, we get more of. So I quickly just decided to have peace with the whiteboard, because the reality is the whiteboard was on the wall. It wasn't going to come off, and I had to look at it every day. So that's just a minor example, but that's what we have the power to do this all day. This whole experience gave me a great deal of meaning, because I want to come back and help people like you who can learn this way of healing. It's just not something we naturally do. I know it's hard to remember when you're going through a really difficult experience. Sometimes we get stuck in a mind loop, and I call it the trance, because your mind is just stuck in that negative thought loop, and it's hard to stop and say, how do I want to go through this experience? However, I want you to practice. So here's how to take the high road in any difficult circumstances. So first, I want you to know that there are only two main types of thoughts. There are thoughts of love, and there are thoughts of fear. Underneath anxiety is fear. Underneath frustration is fear. Underneath anger is fear. When you experience a negative circumstance, and maybe you can bring one up right now, and you're feeling stuck, I want you to try stepping outside your current thinking and ask yourself these two questions. This is a really good exercise to write down. Ask yourself, in this difficult situation you have now, what would love do? What would it look like if you were in the field of love, this energetic field? What would you do, and what would you say? And this is the field that I was in after the near-death experience. I was in a heightened energy place. I gave love and gratitude to my care providers. I was helpless. I had 8 tubes coming out of my body just to stand me up. A separate nurse had to sort the tubes to have me stand. It was a miracle that I survived this near-fatal wreck. I began to watch. I was in the observer place. I watched people. I watched doctors coming in. And what I noticed was, towards the end of my stay, there was a pulmonologist that was assigned to my case because I'd had a pulmonary emboli. After he was off, he kept coming to visit. And Dr. Kill was wondering, why is he coming in here? I suspect that it had to do with this field that I've been talking about. I had a CNA named Princess. She said to me in the week before I was going to go, she said, I know you have to go, but I don't want you to go. I had been so caring with her about her 2 young boys and her dad at home, watching them. I felt like I got the best care in the world. I got love and gratitude back. And so then I want you to ask, what would fear do in this situation? So you've written down what love would do. Write down what fear would do, so that you can see the way you might react if you were in fear right now. Those negative emotions we've talked about. This is a low density, energetic fear and all the thoughts that go with it. I think by now you know that it's not the circumstances that matter. It's your thoughts about the circumstances and the actions you take as a result. Those give you the outcome. Sometimes when John and I are going to discuss something that's difficult, I'll say, what's the outcome you want to have at the end of this discussion? And he'll say something like, I want to feel closer to you. That's love. He wants to feel closer. So I sometimes remind him so that he's able to pull this off. Because in the heat of the moment, it's hard to have a discussion. And you all know that it's not wise to make decisions with fear driving the car. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Either you can steer it with consciousness and you're seeing and awake, or fear is going to drive the car, and you really don't want fear driving the car. Many people feel that life happens to them and they're powerless to make choice, and they're not. We can only control our reactions. We can't control what other people do, say, what happens to us. These are external forces. The only thing we can control is what's inside. That's why it's so important to be conscious and to have mindset practices when you go through these things. I know for a fact that if I were in fear in the hospital, a state of fear, it would have impeded my healing. I wouldn't have had such kind and caring people if I were nasty to them or angry. I would have treated them differently and perhaps less compassionately. That's not like me anyway. We can't permanently change our results in life without changing our thoughts. We're going to get the same thing over and over again. So I want you to put this on paper, step outside of it, and look. I want to say that I believe that we're here to learn from these difficult experiences in our lives. For me, this car wreck broke me open again to a higher level of consciousness because of this near-death experience, and it was profound, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's what I want to share today. Now over to you. Has there been a difficult experience in your life where you've used love and gratitude? I'd love to know. If you liked this video and found it useful, please share the love and share it with your friends. And you can subscribe below. If you want more actionable tips, you can subscribe to my mailing list at sheroldbarr.com. That way you don't ever miss a thing. All right, everybody. Good luck on this, and let me hear from you.